Everyone, good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us in today's session. Today, we are in conversation once again with the Vice Rector, Dr. Douglas Trimble. And today's session is extremely important because in today's session, he plans to share the institutional vision of embracing AI, while also addressing some pressing challenges that AI continues to pose to students' integrity, and their motivation and overall university experiences. He's also going to talk about his vision for faculty and students' preparedness in terms of critical competencies for AI. And while doing so, he's also going to talk about the future for faculty development at FC and how the Institute overall, foresees the future of AI at FC College University. So today's session is extremely important in terms of understanding the institutional vision for AI integration at FC, and also to clarify any questions or ambiguities if we have any, and to realign our teaching philosophies and teaching intention as we enter the new semester. We prepare to enter the new semester, spring 2025. So while doing so, I strongly encourage everybody to please keep posting questions in meeting chat. After Dr. Trimble would be, after he would take you through his prepared material, he's going to take your questions and he will answer as many questions as he would be able to. And the rest of the questions will be given out to his office for further consideration and future. He's going to tend to those whenever he would be able to. So over to you, Dr. Trimble. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and you can put up your slides.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. I'm so pleased to be able to address you on this very important issue of AI. As we as an institution are thinking about this, we're looking at opportunities and challenges for higher education in terms of AI. We've been on a journey already. I'm certainly not an expert in AI, and I don't claim to be one. We have a number of audiences here that I'm speaking to, I realize. There's some faculty who are early adopters and have been using AI and are already using it effectively in the classroom. There's some who are tired of hearing about AI and they're thinking, oh gosh, another talk on AI. There's some that are a bit fearful or skeptical about what it can be used. Others have been trained in AI. We've had a number of you, 100 of you have gone through the Auburn University training on the use of AI in higher education and are engaged in helping others in your department learn how to use AI effectively in the classroom. So I just want to acknowledge that right off the bat, that we have lots of people at different places in this AI journey. AI itself is evolving quite rapidly. And even some of the things that I say today will seem passé very rapidly. And even the things we were talking about a year or 2 years ago seem to be outdated, of course. What I perceive at this point that we are, as an institution, ahead of the game in terms of higher education, and I want us to lean into that. I was at a conference at the NETCHI annual meeting in Boston in December, and somebody was mentioning this Auburn University course to train faculty and asked, there was a room of maybe 100, 150 people, and they asked how many of the institutions had been able to make use of this. And I put up my hand quickly, and one other person in the room, and so I was quite pleased that we were on the cutting edge of this. I just want to acknowledge the excellent work that CLT has been doing and is doing in helping prepare us for this AI moment. It's currently working on a policy and guidelines for the institution collaboratively with faculty, staff, students, so that we have something that helps us and guides us. We've had a couple of faculty retreats with heavy emphasis on AI. There's been trainings, support materials. All of this is absolutely essential as we as an institution move forward. Generative AI challenges education as usual. That's how I see it at this point. And I'm going to be drawing on this, a couple of presentations that I heard. One was by Cynthia Alby from Georgia College. She spoke to the CIC Institute for Chief Academic Officers in Portland, Oregon in November. Dr. Gloria and I were able to attend that. And I'll be using a lot of her materials here, and you'll see them cited throughout. I also was able to hear keynote talk by Kevin Roos from the New York Times as he addressed the annual meeting of NETCHI in December. And I just came to be convinced that it's important to talk to you as a faculty so you understand how I'm understanding AI and what that looks like for us as an institution. So there was a number of questions that Cynthia Alby led us through, and you'll see the attestation at the bottom of the pages when I'm drawing notes, drawing slides from Cynthia, and I really appreciate her the way she organized the material, and I found it very helpful. And so I wanted to present that to you today, along with some other material that I'm bringing to the table as well. One of the things she did is she had a little bit of question and answer, some common thoughts or objections or ways that people are responding to AI, ways that educators might be thinking. Some educators might be thinking, I don't need to spend AI because it isn't all that. It's not that important. It's not making that much of a difference. In response to that, she cited Elon Mollick, who's well known in writing and on AI. He challenged himself. He gave himself 30 minutes to see how far he could get in creating a marketing campaign using AI. Now, Ethan Mollick is ahead of the game for a lot of us in terms of his experience, but he wanted to see, given what he knows about using AI tools that are available to the public, what he could do in half an hour. He put in the prompts and AI did all the work, and he wanted to see what he could do. So he set the timer and he went at it for half an hour. After half an hour, he says that he was able to create a market positioning document, an email campaign, a website, a logo, a hero image, a script, an animated video, social media campaigns for flight platforms, and some other odds and ends besides. Oh my, and that was just a half an hour. And so I think this just illustrates like the potential of using AI. Now, I can't speak to the quality of all this, but it does show that within half an hour, he was able to get an enormous amount of work done. What's happening now? Well, this is just the tip of the iceberg, but there's specialized GPTs that are trained on quality subsets, such as trained on grants, and then will be able to be queried for that. The AI is linked to other apps and agents. They're sort of like sub-programs that can act based on what the AI is telling them to do. AI is incorporated in virtually everything at this point. Khan Academy, Duolingo, Canva, Google Suite. We are seeing it all over the place. And AI is becoming better at its reasoning skills. And so a couple of years ago, there was a number of articles that came out sort of, and from now and then, poking fun at what AI produced. But it's becoming much better. You can actually query AI and instruct it to pause and to think and to slow down and to give it not only to do what it was doing again, but to actually think about it and give it extra time. And by doing that, the quality of the responses is improving. And so to the question, I don't need to spend time on AI because it isn't all that. Cynthia Alby would really encourage us, please get to know AI because what it can do is mind-blowing once you know which GPT to use and how to prompt it well. Second objection. I don't need to spend on AI because students aren't using it much. And when they do, we can tell. I have heard
Dr.
this.
Trimble, I'm sorry to interrupt, but we can't see your slides. Are you not sharing those, or I think you have missed to share your slides?
I haven't pushed the right button. Thank you so much for asking me. Okay. Here's slides. Oh, here we go. Okay, are you able to see the screen there?
Yes.
It should be a blue slide that says transitioning to the age of
Yeah,
AI.
we can see it now.
Okay, very good. Thank you so much for slowing me down and making sure that we can see that. I appreciate that. Okay. So there's the slide where I was talking about different audiences that we're talking about, as well as some of the trainings that I have, or some of the keynotes that I've recently gone through. Because it isn't all that. Okay, so I gave the example of Ethan Mollick. Okay, so I think this is where we pick up in the presentation then. Let's see if I can move this. Okay. Yeah, so this is the second objection that sometimes people will say, don't need to spend on AI because students aren't using it much, and when they do, we can tell. How well can they write? Here's an example that I found quite interesting from, this was some of you might have heard of this. It was a first-year Harvard student. She asked for permission from her professors to do this, that she would do her final exams herself, but that she would also have AI do all of her finals and see how well the AI did. And the AI got a GPA of 3.3 at the end of the semester. Her professors couldn't tell at all. And these were the classes you can see that she was taking at the time. And so how well can they do? AI can do pretty well. What I assume is that students are intelligent and that they are really good at, I mean, there's a reason that they got to university to begin with, and they're at this point, and they're also intelligent and clever about using how to outsmart the detectors that are out there, cool bots, humanizers, adding mistakes intentionally so that it's not obvious. Some students are bad at this, of course, and then we can catch it right away. That is certainly the case. But that's in the short term. In the long term, this is going to be a losing battle to try to figure out and detect the use of AI. It's a ubiquitous temptation. It's everywhere. Even in a in a Word document. Little AI prompt says, help me write. You describe what you're writing, and boom, a complete draft can be generated for you if you wanted to do that. It's not that you have to go out and seek it and find it. It comes to you. AI is all over the place. And now Anthropic has a computer use. It can take over your keyboard. It can type in text in your browser. And so if anyone's trying to use a proctoring software, it's completely now obsolete because you can't do a lockdown software. The AI can take over the keyboard and type for the student. collegetools.io can actually work inside a learning management system, could take quizzes, complete assignments, all right within the LMS. And so how can we detect AI? Cynthia Alby makes the point, mostly you can't. Occasionally you can, of course, especially if the student leaves in, the brackets where it says, fill in your name here, those sort of things. I've even seen a journal article that was published with that, and they left the AI prompt within the article. So sometimes you can, but mostly you can't. And that's what she's reporting. And she put in her own writing to see what Turnitin would do. And it was written 20 years ago, and AI said that much of it was generated by AI. Turnitin said that much of it was generated by AI, which of course was completely ridiculous. She had written it 20 years ago before AI was even available. And so if we're going to use Turnitin has certainly will detect similarity, but it also will give an index of how much is generated by AI. But the experts that I'm hearing say there's a lot of problems with this. Be cautious. Don't fail somebody right away because of this, because it could be wrong, and it's just not reliable at this point. What AI is detecting as what Turnitin is detecting as AI generated text. It could lead to a conversation. You could have a conversation, if you detected it with students. Oh, hello. Are we still on?
Yes.
Yes, we are still on.
Okay, can you still see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So Cynthia Alby was saying that we should, that if we decide to use Turnitin and its detection of AI generated text, we should use it as one of multiple factors helping us to decide whether, in fact, the student has cheated. Don't use it in an accusation sort of way, but compare their writing to other writing samples that they've done and what you know that they can actually achieve. Ask them if they're able to explain their key concepts. And I know a number of you are already doing this well, and I think this is just wise advice. Don't rely on it, but use it as a tool in having conversations with students. And so talking to students, if they've written a paper, ask them, about that paper. What do they know about it? What can they tell you about that? Students submitted more than 22 million papers that AI or that Turnitin flagged as, quote, may have used generative AI. That was in 2023. It doesn't include those that were humanized or use those that were run through Quillbot or such, or papers that weren't submitted to Turnitin. And so we know that there's an enormous amount of use of AI by students. And that was only back in 2023 that we had that statistic. It's even more pervasive today than then. So what is the on-campus situation? What I would see us as valuable next steps then is that we redesign our courses in light of generative AI, especially those out-of-class assignments and what we're expecting students to do. Many of you are already doing this or thinking about this. This is not new, but I really just want to lean into this. I think that we should expect that students are going to use AI and maybe even encourage them to use AI. And not say, well, I hope that they don't, or expect them not to use it unless told otherwise. Rather, the other way around, that we should expect that they are going to use it, because it isn't in isolated apps or places where AI is available. It's available all over the places. Courses in which students use AI are more likely to motivate students to do their best work. We could spend more time on this, and Cynthia Alby has done some writing on this, and I think because of the way that students are engaged, in the way that they don't feel like they are in a desperate situation, the way, if we can give them the skills and the tools to be able to do this, I think that they will rise to the equation and find meaningful work. And when they find assignments and work meaningful, they are most likely to do their best work, as opposed to just doing it for a grade or just doing it so that they can graduate and get out of here and get to the real world. I think it's helpful to think about what sort of assessments we have. Some assessments help us to know what students know or what students know how to do. Other assessments show us what students can actually do, what they can produce. And if we want to know what students know, Viva, of course, is going to be the best way to do this, to talk to the student. Of course, some students are nervous and some students don't necessarily perform the best in oral exams. But Viva, absolutely, it's got to be the gold standard today in knowing what do students actually know. Second of all, we have in-class exams, tests, and quizzes. Students aren't cheating if they're not using their phone devices. Then we can actually know what students know. If we want to know if students know how to write, so not only knowledge, but also the skill of writing, in-class writing would be the way to go. And so we're seeing a revival of in-class exams, in-class writing. And so what we need to discontinue, because it's not viable anymore, is using out-of-class problem sets or papers or other written work to assess what students know. If we want to know what they know, if they do it out of our sight, then there's no way that we're going to be able to stop them from using AI. And so term papers and if we're assigning a term paper and saying, is this going to tell us, do students know how to write? I mean, it's been questionable in the near past, and it's almost entirely out the window at this point. Certainly what students can do, we can have them do things in class, we can have them do things at home, assignments, projects, plans, and proposals. And if we're doing it at home, we would expect them, say, use AI to do these things and see what you can do, see what you can produce. But this is not what do they know or what do they know how to do, but it's what they can produce. And this is really the way that I think that we need to think about at-home assignments now, is not showing us what do students know, but what can they do. To this argument, I don't need to spend on AI because students aren't using it as much, and when they are using it, Cynthia Alby concludes, and I would agree with her, students, that we should get to know AI because students are using it, getting savvier by the minute. It's becoming a ubiquitous temptation and hard to detect, while faculty are often unaware of how to handle it. So we can either adopt a negative posture toward AI, and I think that that's sort of the way that many people have started, that AI is something that we need to be cautious of, and we need to oppose it because it hinders learning, or it's a distraction for students, or it's irrelevant to the educational it's irrelevant to what we do. And that our role in a negative posture then would be that our role is to, quote, prevent students from cheating. And that's really what we have to do. We have to make sure that they're not using it and defend against it, and having a very negative sort of language about AI and how it relates to educational enterprise. I would argue that we need to have a positive approach toward AI. And this is going to take time, and it's going to evolve over time. But that AI, if we use it right, will actually facilitate learning and will actually make what we are doing better, not worse. A positive thought about approach to AI is that each student can have a personal tutor or have a thought partner that can help them to do their best work. Now, that's a good thing. A positive approach to AI would be that we expect and encourage students to use AI for their assignments rather than banning it, saying, how can we help them and encourage them to use AI? And I think by doing this, we can expect better outcomes for students. Not that, but of course, there's a lot of nuance here, and this is not something that we just wave a magic wand and it happens all of a sudden. Having a positive approach, positive posture toward AI means that our students will be well prepared for postgraduate research or the workplace or whatever that is that they're doing next. The next objection that Cynthia Alby raised is, I don't need to spend on AI because it can wait. It's not something I need to attend to now. We can come to it then when we have more time later. Well, AI is having effects on the job market right now. Research has shown that past technological advances suggest that jobs are lost in the short term, but generally more jobs are generated in the long term. And I think that that is probably going to be the case. New jobs usually require higher skill levels and education. And that's where what we do becomes even more important. The sort of jobs that are going to be lost aren't sort of the low-end jobs. It's going to be high-end jobs. And we have jobs like this. Not that they're going to be lost. Well, some of them will be lost. Absolutely will be gone. And these are a lot of the sorts of things that our students are thinking about doing or looking into the future. And some of the research, I mean, this was based on a report specifically saying what sort of jobs will be are most threatened by AI. And these aren't sort of blue-collar jobs. These are high-end jobs that educated individuals are looking at. However, the research also indicates that that more jobs are going to be opened up for people in these areas as time progresses. A 2023 Future of Jobs report by the World Economic Forum asked businesses what their top skill priorities for 2027 are, not 2023, 2024, 2025, but 2027. So looking out 4 years into the future. And they ranked them. The top two were analytical thinking and creative thinking. And of course, those are things that are really strong priorities for us as a liberal arts, and some things that I think that we do really well. But priority number 3, 7, and 8 were AI and big data, technology literacy, design and user experience. And so as we look at what the job market is looking for, it's not, we can't wait. It is looking for these things now. Please get to know AI because our graduates are going to need it to get jobs and be successful in those jobs in nearly every field. And so we could spend more time on sort of unpacking what that would look like in the sciences, natural sciences, social sciences, education, humanities, computer, and education, business, across the board. It's going to impact those the ability of our graduates to succeed. Another objection, I don't need to spend time on AI because I don't see how it would really help students. It can only harm them. Okay. I think there's a legitimate concern here that we need to think about in terms of what are some of the downsides to AI. But Cynthia Alby makes the case that there are some upsides as well. And where she recommends starting is starting with the downsides, helping students to understand what are the downsides of relying mindlessly on AI and how they harm themselves by using AI. Have conversations with students about the environmental concerns, the biases, labor issues, privacy, and more. She has students then use AI and critique the output and realize, yeah, there's some good stuff here, but there's some stuff that I can do a lot better. And then allow students to self-persuade why I want to use AI responsibly, i.e., help them to write in their own words about how using AI as a crutch can actually cause them to not achieve their educational outcomes and not prepare themselves for the workplace in the way that they need to. Because policing their use is a losing strategy. And so to develop in themselves a sense of ethics and responsibility and desire to use it in an ethical way, in a way that helps their own education, is the way to go. I will be making this PowerPoint presentation available to the faculty. And so you'll have this, including the links within it, such as Cynthia Alby has a link here for introducing students to AI. It hyperlinks to a guide that I think is quite helpful. So let me give you an example that she shared with us. So she was teaching recently, Cynthia Alby was teaching a course. She's an education professor. And in this course, the goal was for students to learn how to write lesson plans, because these students were going to become teachers. And this is something that they would need to do on a regular basis, how to learn to use lesson plans. And so from the first day of the semester, she told the students to use AI to generate all their lesson plans. She couldn't believe that she was saying this to them. She was like, am I really telling them to let AI do all their work? But what happened is that students quickly realized that they could do better than what the AI was doing. And so throughout the semester, they were thinking about analyzing the assignments. They were engaged in analysis and evaluation. And she used the same final project that she always uses in her classes. She has a large piece of paper that she puts up on the board, on the wall, and the students come in. And what they do is in person, they create a lesson plan as their final project. It's the final exam for the semester. And she was thinking to herself the night before the final assessment, oh no, this is going to be a disaster. All semester long, these students have been using AI as a crutch, and they are going to do really badly on this assignment. It turned out the exact opposite. The exact opposite. She received the best results ever. The students had, because they've been using AI, it was in a sense doing the grunt work for them, and they were doing the higher order thinking. They learned the skills that they needed to, but they were doing it in a much superior way by leaning into AI. And this is her reflections on this experience. She found that they quickly realized that there were lots of things that they could do better. And they led to higher order thinking, especially critique, analysis, and application. AI generated a lot of ideas, but the students did the heavy lifting, the creative work, creating better lesson plans than ever before. And then so by encouraging the use of AI, it seems to have led to better results than banning it. And so she adopted a positive approach to AI rather than trying to prevent them from using it. She said, use it as much as possible. And she found through the way that she used it with her students that they actually had better outcomes, not worse. I think this is an example. Whether this extrapolates to all other university courses and in all cases, I don't think that's the case. But I think that there is an excellent lesson to learn here about a positive approach to AI. She uses sample prompts to her students. She gives these. She might say, can you give me multiple resources to help? She would tell the students to put this into the ChatGPT or Copilot or Bard or Claude to help me understand such and such. The resources could be videos, websites, simulations, games, or infographics. Can you break down the concept of blank into manageable chunks as a way to help students learn how to learn that material? Can you help me understand blank using cricket as an analogy for how to do that. If somebody likes cricket and is a cricket player, that might be a helpful way for them to use that to understand the material. I'm planning a career in such and such. Can you help me to see how such and such will help me to prepare for that, such like a course? You are an expert in such and such. I will ask you questions and your answers, and you are to answer as an expert mentor would. And so by seeding these to our students or giving these to our students and helping sort of plant the idea of how the students can use AI, it can help facilitate them to use it effectively. AI can be a great tutor or learning support. It's very patient. You can ask the same question over and over again, and it's not going to get annoyed at you for saying, but I just told you that. Very supportive. To the students, it's very cost effective. Available 24/7. It can be tailored to the learner very specifically. Sometimes people are embarrassed to go to the writing center or to go and talk to a faculty member or to say, I don't know, and reach out. And this gets over that hump of being embarrassed about accessing support. And it may help them to use other supports. After they've done that, they might then go to the writing center for additional use, additional support. They are not as reliable on some obscure topics, and so they're not always helpful. And particularly math might require specialized apps. The generalized AIs sometimes will struggle with doing mathematics. And so if we look at tutoring, so let's look at this example. This is a Benjamin Bloom, 1984, classic study on the effect of if we see a normal distribution of learning achievement based on lectures, some students will do well, some students will not do so well. Mastery learning is going to lead to higher achievement scores by approximately a standard deviation. But tutoring, one-on-one instruction, is going to have the biggest advantage in terms of student learning compared to lecturing a class of 30 students. And so AI can help our students to have, each of them have an individual tutor. That's not something that we should dismiss, because the research shows that that can be an enormous advantage to learning for our students. Number of learner supports. AI can provide exceptional transcription, can help explain difficult concepts, can help students know where they made mistakes and where they got wrong. This is all the sort of tutoring that they can do. It can translate into their dominant language. I think this is particularly helpful for us in our context. It can describe images. So if somebody has like a visual impairment, AI can describe what the image is that they're looking at. It can help students to organize their ideas. It can also be used in very lazy ways to help them do their work that they should have been doing themselves. And so I'm not saying that it's a magic wand. I've mentioned that before, but it certainly can be used in excellent ways to increase learning student outcomes. If we are thinking that we don't see how it really helps students, absolutely AI can. It can be a game changer when it comes to enhancing learning and retention. And so we should not take for granted or dismiss the potential benefits that use of AI can yield. Another objection: I don't need to spend on AI because it would take more time than it's worth to get good at. And so just practically, here's the recommendations from Cynthia Alby. I thought these were very helpful. She says, don't bother. Don't use the free version of ChatGPT 3.5. It's outdated. It has biases. It hallucinates. There's an odd tone to it. Don't use this. We need to move beyond this. The models, the 4.0 models are 10 times more advanced than the ChatGPT, the original one. And so we have at our fingertips other ones that are much better. And so even though ChatGPT got a lot of the early publicity, we need to move away from it. Microsoft Copilot is free. We have an HCC account. All of us have access to Microsoft Suite, Word, Excel, PowerPoint through our HCC account, and that includes access to Microsoft Copilot. So that's the one that I would strongly recommend. The paid version of OpenAI's GPT is much better. It's high quality. But if you use the free version of 4.0, after a little while, depending on traffic, it will send you to the old version, which is not good. So I would not recommend that. Claude AI is quite good, designed to be ethical. Best for working with large documents, according to Cynthia Alby. Google Gemini is excellent, especially for those using Google Docs and Google Sheets and such. And so those are some just some practical advice from Cynthia Alby on which GPT to use. Perplexity AI is also excellent. It's like a search engine. So when we use the other sort of AI, the GPTs, we shouldn't think of them as a search engine like Google. We need to think of them as doing tasks for us. Perplexity, if you're having a search with a specific question, then Perplexity is a good way to ask those questions. It's an answer engine, whereas Google is a link engine. You ask it a question and it provides you links for things that are out there on the web. But Perplexity is quite helpful. So getting started, begin with copy and paste prompts. Some of the ones that I shared earlier that for students to try, you can try them on your own. There's other resources on the web that you can just try prompting. So just jump right in and try it a little bit. It's best to think of AI as a smart but untrustworthy assistant, or a colleague who forgets everything that you say once you've talked to it. So you work with it, you tweak the prompts. You almost always have to, you try a prompt and it's not quite good, you try it again, you keep prompting it, you keep modifying it, making it more sophisticated. And by doing that, you can actually run subprograms within that. As you engineer your prompts, you can actually have it run a Python program to produce an outcome. You can have it produce PowerPoint slides, depending on as you learn how to prompt the AI effectively. Her recommendation, in an hour or two of just fiddling around with it, you will be rocking it and learning how to use this very quickly. Please get to know AI because you could be using it productively within a couple of hours. And so I'd like to pivot here away from some of this question and answer that Cynthia Alby was giving. I think that's helpful, but I'd like to just give some of my thoughts in terms of what I'm looking for from the faculty, from you. As I mentioned earlier, consider using MS Copilot. Continue your AI professional development in some form. Next year, the Academic Standards Committee will be looking for it when assessing evidence for improving as a teacher and advisor. And so you might consider taking a Coursera course in prompt engineering, or there's lots of other options for doing that. And we've been able to get Coursera accounts through the HCC to use them for free. And so the Academic Standards Committee will start in the next month or two its work, and it will not have this when it does its work in spring 2025. But in spring 2026, when it's looking at the work from this current year, 2025, this is going to be important in assessing evidence as improving as a teacher and an advisor. Because of all the things we've been talking about today in terms of just how valuable it is and necessary for this moment in higher education. Many of you have already done this, making your course AI expectations clear in your course outline or course syllabus. I use those terms interchangeably. By using the course template that CLT has produced and is available via Moodle is a great way to do this. I would like each of us to adopt a positive approach to AI, not the negative approach of catching students or preventing them from cheating, but thinking about how we can design assignments that calls for students to do their best work using AI, not doing their best work by avoiding AI, but how can they use it in that way? Now, is that for every assignment, for everything? No. I'm not going to dictate that or expect that. But this is the direction that we as an institution, I'm seeing us move toward. If students just have AI write a term paper, what we'll often get is a bland term paper with good grammar. But we want to move beyond that to having students develop a voice, develop their taste, develop what they can bring to the equation, their critical thinking, and that's going to bring their best work to the table. My vision then is for everyone graduating from Forman will be well skilled in AI. We'll be able to, they're not going to prompt engineers, they're going to be able to engineer how they AI to do good work for them. That our courses, all courses expect students to use AI. I'm not going to police this, of course, of all courses doing this, but this is really where I see us going as an institution. This is really the future of higher ed as I am reading it right now. That we develop a positive relationship with AI, that we continue to be a leader in AI pedagogy. Even this past summer, CLT did an excellent training that was available not only to our faculty here, but across the country and globally on how to use AI. And so I want us to continue being a leader in this area. And my vision is that student outcomes will be better by using AI. They will not be worse, they'll not be neutral, but they will actually be improved as we come to use AI well. I'm going to skip that slide for the purpose of time. I see this as a shared responsibility between students and faculty. The students have an obligation to use it ethically and responsibly, to reject deep fakes, to reject the use of misinformation, lazy writing, using it for shortcuts. The obligation for us is to teach those skills to our students of how to have responsible AI literacy skills, to model the ethical use of AI so that they can see what that looks like. Design assignments that expect AI from the get-go, but that expect not only that they can quickly do the assignment and get it over with, but that they can use AI, but they need to do more than just use AI, that they can develop critical thinking and do their best work by using AI as a tool in the way that calculators and spell checkers and these other sorts of things are tools. It's like that. Moving away from trying to catch cheating of students. And we talked earlier about some of the problems with the unreliability of the AI detection and Turnitin. And we have to abandon out-of-class writing as to assess knowledge, research skills, or writing. We certainly will use out-of-class writing for a lot of important ways, but not to make these assessments because it's just not possible anymore. I have concerns. I have lingering concerns about this. As I'm trying to paint a positive approach to this, let me not think that it's all Pollyanna, or you think that I think it's all Pollyanna and that it's just all easy. It's not going to be easy to do. It's going to take work on our part. And there are concerns, technological concerns. There are biases, well documented, that are built into the large language models that we have out there. That's a problem. The hallucinations, problem that that we've seen when an AI just makes up information. One thing that has been shown is in using the things is to say, if in the actual prompt that you give to the AI, say that if you don't know, it's okay to say that. And because and that is one way to reduce hallucinations. There's a concern with the bandwidth here in Pakistan as we ramp up the use of AI, and we're trying to use more and more of it. There's concerns on campus in terms of our connectivity, as well as the country. And this is something that I'm working on very actively right now with the CFO and the CIO to improve our infrastructure within the academic blocks, particularly, so that we can do this and do this well. Learning outcomes. I'm concerned that AI can short-circuit learning. If students are using it, and if the sort of assignments that they are being given by faculty can be easily done with AI and that don't require the highest level of thinking, I'm concerned with students engaging in papers. That's not what we want for our students. Assessing AI without critical thinking, creativity, and their own contribution. I don't want that. That's a concern for me. I don't want to go there. There's ethical concerns that I have. The easy way that AI can be used for disinformation, deep fakes. There's environmental concerns that the amount of computing power that's necessary to use these technologies is consuming an enormous amount of energy, and that's a real problem. We are at the cusp of, well, we as a society, not just a society, but as a globe, we're adopting a potent technology, and we don't really know how it's going to affect humanity. We don't really know what is happening inside the AI. We can't go in and just look at the code and see what's happening. That are happening. Computer scientists admit we're not exactly coming to those answers. When it generates an output, exact same output, same prompt every time. There's questions that are wrong. And so I think that it's legitimate for us to critique, to
देखिएगा कोई कोने में बिल्डिंग इंचार्ज का है, लेकिन क्लास है या आप एग्जाम है.
Then as we are using it, we can't. I don't think we can turn around and say no, we shouldn't use it, or abandon it, or say that we have to wait before all these issues are resolved before we lean into using AI, because I think that we can use it and we ought to use it in a very positive way with our students. And so thanks for your time, your attention. I'll answer some questions at this point. I asked MS Copilot for a sentence about AI. For a sentence about education, and it wrote this sentence. I'm just playing around here. I wanted to see how many AIs could be put into a big old long sentence about education. This is just for fun, the sentence of seeing how much AI can fit into education at one time. So at this point, I've given a lot of information. We don't have a lot of time, but I can answer some questions at this point.
Thank you so much, Dr. Trimble. This was really interesting. Generally, the faculty has endorsed everything that you have said. We have a lot of comments here in the meeting chat. Two questions that came up, and I'm going to share those on my screen. I hope you can see my screen so you can answer these. And then we have Dr. Wajahat's hand up. So I think that he wants to say something.
Yes. Question to Dr. Trimble. I'm wondering if we have a policy in place before you are asking everything. It's nice and everybody's using it. I have attended several webinars and 80% of the faculty outside Pakistan, they are adopting it and they are doing the same fashion as you have described. But I was wondering, is there any policy that you have in mind to be in place before you can go further on this?
Yeah, so we are in the process of writing a policy. If we had written this policy 2 years ago, it would have been outdated now. And so we're trying to write it. It's going to end up being something which provides more guidance than anything in terms of how we can use that. But we want to do this. We are in the process of doing that. There's a draft document that the committee is working on right now. It'll be shown. It's being shown to administration. We're getting feedback from students from the ground up, not bringing them in at the last moment. And so at this point, we need to move forward. We can't wait for that document before we do anything. But I think that we have some things in place, some guidance, some training. Putting something in the syllabus is, I think, an important first step on all that.
Agreed. Thank you.
Yes, Dr. Sana. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Trimble. While there's a lot of queries about educational AI policy, and for that, I would like to add that if our faculty think that the AI education policy or guidelines, we don't call it a policy because it can't be carved in stone right now for many reasons. It's not going to give you the precise answers you're looking for. Yeah. The guidelines so far that we have seen elsewhere and what we have done leave a lot of autonomy within the bigger frame. They make you, the document makes you aware of the pluses, some of the challenges and implications. Many of them are hidden, like the hidden curriculum, those implications, and we haven't started talking about them yet. And there's no clear-cut guidance on what would you call cheating. Those are queries that all are trying to find out answers through best practices, through sharing with each other. And there is a general consensus that it's very difficult to pinpoint where exactly do you draw a line. Now, Turnitin, if you know, allowed us 20% similarity check, and we put that as the maximum point beyond which we would not proceed. Turnitin now does the same. It does a 20%, gives you a similarity check with percentages. And it will be up to you if you want to draw a line there or move beyond that. You cannot stop the use of AI. But again, like we taught our students to paraphrase, to rethink, to connect and engage with the text and the narrative, we'll have to teach our students to do that. And it will be very difficult initially because we are still grappling with it. So what I would suggest is that those guidelines are a broad document. So the broad document says exactly what Dr. Trimble has said, that this is good. This should not, like all new technology, be blasted as we just need to integrate. How the human being socially, emotionally, educationally, or otherwise is going to evolve is anybody's guessing game. We are all trying to see whoever are producers of AI is to how to ensure that they can sort of encapsulate it for different purposes. And so far, there are no clear-cut answers. So it's fast changing, will not be able. There was a time, I think, Dr. Trimble, as you know, we discussed what do we call cheating in an age of AI? There were 10 categories that we picked up from different sources who had worked on this. And now if you come to say that there's cheating in AI, they just say that it's not about cheating, it's how AI has been used. And the citations, I read a article somewhere that very soon we will not ask students to submit their prompts and their work and that heavy load of stuff. We will just say that they have used AI and that's okay. But how well they have prompted to get the results is what will be key. I know it's very confusing. The more I read and the more we read about AI, the more frazzled I am on how to plug it together. And with deep apology, like all over the world, there are no clear-cut answers. So, Vajahat, if you're trying to find an answer in that policy and before you blast CLT for doing that exercise, let me tell you, don't think there'll be any answers. It will still be your autonomy at play. I hope that keeps away the idea about what the guideline is, but we'll try to do an expose of what is and what is doable and what perhaps is not right. How do you catch it? Apart from Turnitin, I have seen that AI itself has very excellent, undetectable AI is one that actually I have tried to be very clever and I put in a draft. I put in the draft through another AI to say humanize it. And then I put it to injectable AI and it said totally AI generated. So there are AI out there. I think Mavish also was telling me the other day that journal people who are screening and reviewing for journals and publications do have paid versions of such AI. So it can be detected. How do you want its use to be considered for your students is something up to you. And like we said, Dr. Trimble said, we welcome the use, but it should be creative. Now, where do you draw a line for that are questions we all have to share best practices with each other and learn from each other. Dr. Trimble, would you like to add anything to that?
Yeah, I think by saying what is sort of like the threshold of permissible AI use that Turnitin would show, I think is asking the wrong question. I think that we have to get away from this sort of perspective of how much is allowable and how much is not. I think that if we try to detect AI, if we're trying to prevent it, trying to say we shouldn't use it, we should only use it a little bit, or they should use it in, paraphrase it. I think we're having the wrong sort of conversation then of it's a very negative approach to the use of AI. We should start with the first assumption is that they're going to use AI in these assignments. And that's actually a good thing, not a bad thing. But it shifts the responsibility from the students not cheating. It shifts the responsibility to the faculty. Unfortunately, it's the heavy lifting for the faculty now that to say, how can I make assignments and for my students that are built from the ground up, assuming students are using AI and then it's not, and that we can't, they're trying to detect it and find if they're cheating or detecting these sorts of things. I think it's just a losing battle. And we might be able to play that game for a year or two, who knows? But I think that it is the wrong approach. And so that's why I'm advocating that we have a positive approach to AI, making the assumption that they are going to use it rather than saying, how can we prevent them from using it and cheating? And so I think even asking the question, what is an acceptable amount of AI to be used? I think it's the wrong question.
So, Dr. Trimble, we have 3 questions on the screen, and these are the questions that we received in the meeting chat.
So does it start with AI can be a good tutor? Is that what we're saying?
Can you see my screen?
I'm looking at the meeting. I cannot see
Well,
your.
okay. Ifra, is my screen not visible? Are the questions not visible on the screen? They are?
I can see your screen.
Questions are visible.
Okay. All right. So I'll just read these to you, Dr. Trimble. The first one has been posted by Dr. Musarat, and she says that if the lesson duration should be increased to administer more in-class work and more face-to-face conversation-based activities. Is there any possibility for this?
I'm still trying to see the question. I don't know why I can't see it. Oh, it might be.
I think you have something else on your screen. So you have to go back to Zoom.
Okay. Zoom.
Yes, you have to go back to the Zoom meeting, and there you can see my screen.
Well, I don't want to leave the meeting at this point. Can you repeat the question again?
Sure. The author has asked that if the lesson duration should be increased to administer more in-class work and more face-to-face conversation-based activities. So I think she is referring to when we said that Viva is the only solution and oral Vivas need to be carried out. So its implication on class time. So she's asking if the in-class work, when it becomes more face-to-face interaction with the students, would it have any implication on the total duration that we spend with the students?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that at this point we'll probably keep our class schedule as it is, but we certainly we can think about that. But what I would recommend, and there was actually some slides that I skipped in the presentation that I had embedded there, but I realized we're running short on time. The idea of using a flipped classroom could be a really good idea here to make better use of that time together. So we often think of the classroom as the place where we give lectures and present material, and then students go home and do homework and do other readings. By the flipped classroom, I think works really well in the age of AI, where the material is presented outside of class, or the students are using AI outside of class to learn, and then come to the classroom for the faculty to help guide them, to give them, help them understand the material better, to answer their questions, to mentor them, to use a Viva at that point, if we're needing to assess what they're learning. But a lot of that learning then can be flipped and can happen outside of the class. And then the classroom can be used for excellent tutoring and mentoring of the students.
Thank you. Masara, do you have something to add? Please go ahead.
Thank you. So thank you for the response, Dr. Trimble. Just a quick question that I am teaching creative writing, and it's a 50-minute class, and I do use the flip mode. I have to use the flip modes a lot more than many of the other faculty would, because there are short stories and there's reading, a lot of reading, and then an in-class participation of the students. So I was wondering if, there is a possibility, and I think there is, if we can change the structure of the timetables and increase the class time duration so that, more in-class conversation can be held, and teachers can suss out the students' responses and where the students are at. I'm all for AI. I have also written a paper on AI using in my creative classroom, but I feel that if the duration is increased, then a lot of problems may be solved. So that was.
So I just would say this is a fascinating idea. I haven't thought about the increased length of time. I do want to acknowledge quickly that it would cause a domino effect on all kinds of other things being changed in terms of our facilities. I'm not sure what that would look like, but let's keep that conversation going. I'm not optimistic that that's going to happen, but we certainly should talk about that.
Not going to happen. It has ramification in terms of plans and timings and faculty. No, it's not going to happen. I'm sorry, I'm interfering.
Yeah. So on an individual basis, you could, if you needed to, schedule your classes on Tuesday, Thursday for longer times with the students, if you need that more longer period with them, or you could redesign the course and put a lab as part of it. And so it isn't only the natural sciences that can have labs. Any discipline can have a course with a lab.
So the next question is from Dr. Kashyap from the Geography Department, where he asked that if FC plans on utilizing agentic AI systems to create more autonomous, adaptive, and personalized educational experiences, while maintaining ethical safeguards and preparing students for leadership in an AI-driven world. So it's generally, everything that we have talked about. So agentic AI systems necessarily require perhaps robots and dedicated AI working for personalization and adaptive education. Dr. Kashyap, if you're in the meeting with us, do you want to add something or add any clarification to the question?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Mavish. Actually, previously we've been talking about the large language models like GPTs and all that. Now there is a shift in the AI development. So the world is switching towards in these coming years, 2025 onward, on the development of AI agents. So that will not only realize the problem, but they practically try to execute those issues and problems. So a word is moving towards that. So I just want to ask from the Vice Rector Office, do they have a plan for kind of these development at FCC as well? Because definitely that will ease the workload of the faculty, and that will be quite practical for the students as well.
At this point, we don't have any specific plans. This is a new term. I think I maybe heard this term once or twice before, so I'm really not too familiar with it. And so, no, I'm not planning. I don't have any specifics on that. But it does fit within this larger framework that I was articulating today in terms of using AI in a positive way for student outcomes. And so it could be very helpful. So I need to learn more about this before speaking more specifically.
Okay.
Dr. Trimble, if I interject, agents are now still in the future, and they are not used, but they are more like they learn from human beings' experience, and they start behaving more like human beings in terms of decision making. Anything that you put before them, they start thinking. It's not like the content being revamped and put up. They actually can go into deeper human like decision making given some factors which are beyond the pure content or language model. And that's where they think it's the integration of the human with the AI. And that is still some time off. I think a bigger issue for us would be how to guard the privacy and security of our campus, faculty, students, and staff data that on open AI platforms is up for grabs for anybody who wants to make use of them. I wonder how useful it is, but I think that is what most universities are doing, are developing their own AI platforms, which are totally FC, for example, would be something FC driven. That's, I think, would be a bigger concern rather than agents AI. So
the last question is...
This is a journey, and everything that we talk about today almost will seem obsolete within minutes.
Absolutely, yeah. Oh. So the last question is most relevant to all of us, and I'm sure that many people want to know institutional decision on providing paid AI tools to the teachers. This question has been put up by multiple participants. We want to know that if FC plans on providing paid subscription of AI-generated tools, which we can use as teaching resources or use with students.
I think that we would approach this in the same way that we would other budget requests, that in the budgeting process of the department, that this would be included in their proposal. And I would support that when it comes to the budgeting for the annual budgeting. I think this is a good use of funds. I think this is an appropriate use of our monies. And so I would support that. We don't have a specific line item or budget for it right now, but it would really depend on which AI departments feel like they need to use, and if they could make proposals for doing that. In terms of using ChatGPT 4.0, I would encourage the faculty. They already have Copilot available to them. It's paid for them. We've made that arrangement already, and so that wouldn't. We're not planning to pay for that because it's actually built on the same. I think it's built on the OpenAI anyways, and so it's accessing that same AI. So, but
so
I think
basically faculty,
the ones that are specific to a specific discipline.
yeah. So basically faculty can decide this in the discipline-based meetings that they have within their departments and run it through their chairpersons and send it to the vice rector's office.
Yeah, and we don't have to necessarily. I mean, if it's something that we need like right away, please communicate that need right away, because if we wait for annual cycle as things are evolving so quickly, that might be too slow. But we could certainly consider that. I would be very eager to see that.
So thank you so much, Dr. Trimble. This was really helpful for us to understand the institutional vision and to clarify our questions. And so we don't have any other question here. I'd just like to say that, in 2009, there was a curriculum, a common sense curriculum that was proposed to train the K-12 students on responsible and ethical use of technology, which was, massively provided in the schools. So we are facing a similar kind of situation where we have to train students on basic value systems to use AI as a resource for their development rather than as a resource for cheating. And I think a lot of it is the top-down approach. If the teachers are looking at it as a resource for cheating, then of course students are also going to find a way to go about it and use it unethically. Knowingly, consciously, they would make decisions of, engaging in something unethical. But rather than that, if we talk about critical AI literacies and we talk about the critical evaluation of AI, why do we want to use it? Where do we want to use it? How much do we want to use? What to do with it and what not to do with it? I think that's a good starting point for all the teachers. There are many critical AI competency frameworks available out there. One of them is proposed by EDUCAUSE, another is proposed by UNESCO. Then Mahabali is also talking about critical literacies of AI. I think we need to explore these frameworks and see what works well in our own context, within our own discipline requirements. So,
very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a very good.
So thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining us today, and hopefully we'll see you again.
Thank you, CLT. Thank you, Dr. Mavish, for facilitating this. I really appreciate this platform to be able to speak about these important topics. So thank you.